How we see ourselves impact our self-value and self-worth. How we talk about ourselves impact how others see our value and worth. Are you underestimating your value? Are you underselling yourself? And are you shortchanging your worth? If so, this episode on how to own your value and worth is for you. Hello and welcome to the Dare to Differentiate show. Whether you're tuning in live or watching the replay, we are so delighted that you're here. Comment to let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm your host, Diana YK Chan, founder of My Marketability, where I help you stand out, get hired, and earn more, and recently named LinkedIn Top Voice. Today, I am super excited to co-deliver this topic on owning your value and worth with Dr. Jasmine Escalera. Welcome, Jasmine. So excited to have you here with us. Here's what to expect. Jasmine and I are going to discuss what does it mean to own your value and worth? What are the biggest challenges when it comes to owning your value and worth? How to demonstrate your value to an employer? How to ask for what you're worth? How to increase your value? How to ask for what you want? Okay, and many, many more. Plus, we're going to be answering your questions there. So, are you excited? If so, type in a +1. Jasmine, I know I'm super excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, super excited to have you back. You were just on my show a year ago. So I'm so happy to have you back. And I really want to raise this vibrational energy. I want you all welcome Jasmine as well. Type in Go Jasmine, hashtag Go Jasmine here to show your support. I'm all about raising vibrational energy. I'm going to go quick intro as well. Jasmine is a career confidence coach for women of color. She's a TEDx speaker and recently named LinkedIn Top Voice and top job search expert to follow on LinkedIn in 2022. So super excited to have you all. So let's check out who's in the house here. Jasmine, like we have, oh my goodness, a lot of folks here right now. We have from Toronto, Buffalo, Northern Virginia, Italy. Hey, Emma. Oh, she was just on my talk at the UN yesterday. Amazing. Bermuda. Awesome. That's great.
I see.
So Jasmine,
yeah.
Who else we have? Yeah. Oh, Puerto Rico as well.
I love this hashtag Go Jasmine. I'm going to use that one.
We got to raise this vibration energy. Okay, so first, some quick housekeeping first. I just want to say some housekeeping because people always ask is that there will be the replays available on my YouTube channel. So you can definitely look for that. I'll be adding timestamps later on. We want to encourage you to click like and comment anytime. Share your thoughts with us, key learnings, engage with each other as well. Okay, so Jasmine, I want to kick things off here. And first of all, because I haven't talked to you in a while, I want to talk to you how are you feeling since being named LinkedIn Top Voice and recently named Top Job Search to follow? How are you feeling?
Don't make me cry. I may cry. It's funny that Denise actually says she's calling from Grenada. So I found out about the LinkedIn Top Voice when I was in Grenada for Christmas, New Year. So on January 3rd, I received the email that said that I was going to be named a LinkedIn Top Voice, and I cried. I sat on the beach in Grenada and cried my eyes out because it was something that was on my vision board. It was something that I really wanted to achieve. But it was almost kind of like one of those things where I was just maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, who knows? And then it did. And it really honestly was almost felt like validation, okay, so I'm telling this story of this wild career journey and life journey that I've been on. And it's validating to feel like people are seeing it. And they're also commenting on it and saying me too. And I think that that's really important as well, is that our stories are our journeys, but it's shared by other individuals. And it can be so powerful to put your story out there because it allows other people to really tell theirs. So it was an amazing experience. I mean, how was it like for you?
I was shocked as well. When I found out, I was like, ah! And it's funny, I actually thought of Austin Belsak at that moment because I remember when he was on my show back in December 2020, he introduced me as LinkedIn top voice, and then during live, and I was like, Austin, it hasn't happened yet. He's like, not yet, but he's like, we're putting it out there. So I was so excited when I found out, and I also found out he got it as well. So
Yeah.
super, super honored, and knowing that, you know, what the work that we're doing and putting out there is making a difference as well there.
100%. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So quick thing, what's one thing most people don't know about you?
Oh, that's a good one. What's one thing that I guess, this is the one that kind of maybe shocks people a little bit is that people assume that I'm an extrovert, but I am incredibly introverted. And I am one of those people who can, put on a show and then I need 5 days of recovery time after that. So it's, I think people assume that, I am very extroverted because I do put my life out there. And I do talk about the things that I've gone through, and I do love to sort of, help people and be around people. But I would consider myself a homebody. I love to be home with my dog. I consider myself very much an introvert. And if you meet me in person, I'm usually the person that's actually sitting, just kind of chilling on the sidelines, just sort of taking it all in. So I think that would be most shocking to people is that I'm not an extrovert at all. I'm not putting myself out there in my real life. Like I just kind of chill.
Yeah. I love that you share that. Like it's for me, I'm an extrovert, but I love my alone time. And
Mm-hmm.
so yesterday when I gave my talk to the UN to over like 260 people, I was drained the rest of the day. Even though I was on a high, I was like on a
Training.
high of feeling so good, but I
Yeah.
gave it my best. Like I gave it my all, and the energy,
Mm-hmm.
I had to be alone. Like I was on my own, just decompressing, like just filled with gratitude, and I had to rest. I had to rest
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
So I
Totally.
hear you. I hear you. I hear you. So before we dive into more questions, I want to talk a little bit about our journey, like our stories and becoming more confident. I know we all have a story, and I want to hear about your story, like, you know, how, on your journey, like, were you always confident, or like, what was that transformational point for you? Share a little bit about that.
I think I was confident when I was a kid. I feel like when I was young, growing up, I had this level of confidence and power and self-esteem that was magical. And that really came from how I grew up. So I grew up in the projects of Brooklyn, New York, and I talk about that experience and journey a lot. And it was such a powerful experience to be in a community with black and brown faces and just feeling like you were accepted for who you are and everyone was going through the same experience as you, as your family. There's that level of connection and deep understanding of one another. And so in that space, I would say that I was incredibly confident. I was also a total bookworm, like I was a nerd. So everybody loved that. And they championed that. I was always called the one that was going to make it out, the one that was going to do it. And as a way of showing that we could do it. And so there was that level of confidence that came just from being in that space and with my community. But I have to say that when I transitioned into my academic space and then into the professional world, that like knocked me on my butt in terms of my confidence because my
Mm,
parents, my dad didn't graduate high school. My mom went to college much later in life, and my community, like they couldn't teach me what it was going to be like out there, right? Like that wasn't something that they could actually explain to me because they hadn't had that experience. So going to
mm,
college, going to grad school, getting, that six-figure job, I had no means to navigate that. And I think that when you're the only in the room and when you're the first in your family and community to do this, that knocks your confidence really.
mm,
So I would say that I had confidence and then I stepped out into the world that I feel like really is not built for people like us. And that completely damaged how I felt about myself, how I felt about even my community. Like I didn't want to talk about being from the projects because that would just be another thing that would make me different. So I left all of that behind and really tried to conform, tried to be successful on other people's terms. And that shattered me for quite some time. And I had to reclaim and rebuild that to become, the confident person I feel I am
yeah,
now, where now I'm just like, whatever.
yeah,
I don't care
yeah,
what anybody has to say about anything. This is me. Um,
You're owning it now.
it took time to reclaim that and to get back to that.
Yeah, yeah. I want to hear from the audience what has impacted your confidence. I know we have an audience here on LinkedIn here. I want to hear if you're willing to share about your story. What has impacted your confidence? For
Yeah.
me, that's a little bit opposite. Like I grew up not confident. I was shy. I was intimidated. And I think growing up in Hong Kong in a very traditional Chinese culture, we were raised to not talk back, to really respect
Mhm.
elders. And I received more criticisms than compliments. So I actually grew up feeling I was never good enough. I felt
Mm.
that I was never smart enough because I dropped a grade when I moved back to Hong Kong when I was 10 and couldn't even write my Chinese name. So that I lost a lot of confidence. And then when I came back to Canada all by myself when I was 16, I had to take grade 13 English 3 times because I had trouble writing essays. I had trouble writing long essays. So that impacted my confidence a lot. And then in business school, 50% of our grades were participation marks. I had the softest voice in class. Like my classmates would be like what Diana said. And I felt embarrassed that I had such a soft voice. And I
Mm.
really had to work on that. So all those things really impact my confidence. And my turning point was really just the last decade when I knew I really deep down want to become a speaker and a coach.
Mhm.
And I knew that in order for me to be a speaker, I need to work on my confidence and to
Mhm.
work on my voice as well. And so it's really just the last decade when I decided to, one of my favorite things, owning your greatness with confidence to shine and thrive. Um, so
Mm.
that's a bit of my journey of how I really develop that greater confidence there.
I love that. It's like opposite stories, but also very similar in that, it's confidence can be really shaped by your environment too, because you went from one space to another space and then back and having to navigate even the changes in language and the changes in culture. That definitely can affect confidence. And so I think we sometimes think of confidence as just being an internal factor that we have to fix. But I also often
Right.
preach to the choir that confidence can be broken by your external environment too. And so, what are the factors that are going on around you that are
You're right.
actually affecting your confidence, and how can you change or better navigate those too?
Yeah, you're right. That's a very good point there. The environment could impact our confidence. Orlando's said comment here is that confidence is a paralyzing feeling. Yes. Some folks share here what are some of their impact or confidence going to college, getting let go from the job. That's a huge one of
Yeah.
impacting confidence. I have to tell you, I have to share this is that I got let go from my job. This was like back 10 years ago before I started my business. It was a huge confidence impact as well because I was like, what's wrong with me?
Mhm.
I'm perform, deliver, but what's wrong? And really went through a lot. But you know what I've learned is that experience actually gave me the fire to do what I do now. And it gave me the understanding what people go through from their job loss. But I totally hear you, Melissa. Getting let go is a huge one, I would say, for people. One of the largest stress factors in life as well there.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. And I also noticed someone talking about a career transition and making a pivot. And like that can definitely bring up a lot of mind drama. I work with a lot of clients who are making career transitions. And the first thing they say is like, I don't have the experience to make the transition, or I don't have the know-how to make it happen. And it's, there's that level of you almost doubting yourself. So you want to
Yeah.
do something different. You're cut out to do that something different, but you actually start almost questioning your own capabilities and abilities to make that happen. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true because you're questioning like, can I do this? Can I
Do it.
actually make it? Right? Like
And it's
that's the
so
question.
interesting because you want to do it and
Yeah.
you're interested in doing it, but then you start to question, can I really do it? Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah. Or we start disqualifying ourselves. When
100%.
we go look at the job and you're like, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this, and then we start
Hmm.
disqualifying ourselves to make that change. Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive in more. This is going to be a juicy one. I know that this is about the ties into everything with confidence. So let's talk about what does it really mean to own your value and worth, and why is it important?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, owning your value and worth is so incredibly important, I think, in every aspect of your life. I mean, we're specifically talking about careers here, but,
Mhm.
when we think about value for me, and Diana, I'd love to hear what you think about this, but I hear a lot of people say, my company doesn't value me. But when you sort of flip the question back onto them as to what value means to them or what do they value, a lot of people are not necessarily sure what that means. And so when we think about worth and value, I really encourage everyone to sort of think about what those terms mean to them, because
Mhm.
value and worth can mean very sort of different things. And so you want to make sure that you're in a company, you're within an environment that's actually going to match your definition of value and worth and going to actually give you what you feel you deserve within those areas. So a lot of times people will say, well, my company doesn't value me. And when you dig deeper, they're really looking for not necessarily monetary value. They're really looking to be seen. They're looking to be
Yeah.
heard. They're looking to be encouraged. They're looking to grow. So owning your worth and value starts with you owning what it is that you define worth and value to be. And then once you have that definition, really being encouraging with yourself to ask yourself, have I actually sought that out so far? Am I in the environment and spaces that are going to provide that to me? And if not, how can I actually look for that in this next stage and step? So I'd love to
Yeah.
hear your thoughts on that.
I love that. And I want to hear from the audience what value means to you. I know that's something you shared yesterday in your post of what value means to you. And when we define what a value means, we're actually setting a standard. We're
Mm,
setting a standard of how others treat us, right?
yeah.
And we are also, and this is what my belief is like: when you don't value yourself, how do you get others to value you?
Hmm.
Right? If you don't value yourself, it's hard for people to see your value or to value you there, right? And when you start valuing yourself, like to me, what it means to own your value is that you really believe that you have what it takes, that you believe that you are markable, that you believe that you are valuable. And in order to do that, you have to really be also proud of what you've accomplished. I feel so many times when I work with clients, when I first start working with them, they'll say like, oh, that was just part of my job, or they don't see the significance of the work that
Mhm.
they've done. So part of it, I think, owning your value and worth is that you need to see the significance of
Yeah.
the work that you've done, and you need to be able to see the impact that you've created in order to also start valuing yourself there.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So it almost kind of goes into owning your unique value as well. So what are those great things that you do in the space, and like truly saying to yourself like, I'm the bomb at this. Like this is something that I'm really great at, and owning that component of yourself too. Yeah, I see that a lot.
Yes.
I don't think that individuals truly do recognize that worth and value all the time. And I'm curious to know, like, what do you think are some of the reasons why people don't actually see their internal greatness or their strengths or what they're particularly good at?
Ooh, I love that. This is a great segue, right? The biggest challenges that people face when it
Yeah,
comes to that. There's a few things, right? I feel like the one is feeling it's that am I enough? Like I'm not enough, or who
yeah.
am I to do
Mhm.
this? Right? There's that one, the piece there. And I think the second is there's this feeling that if I claim that, I may come across as too arrogant or
Yeah.
boastful or self-promotional. Um, so there is that feeling of uncertainty or uncomfort, a discomfort there, I would say. Um, and I feel part of it sometimes it could also be growing up, like what were the environment of what they were growing up, what were they were told as well.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I agree with all of those. And I think the growth component, like how you grow up, is so incredibly important. What I'm noticing with my clients is that we're stepping into this deeper level of work that's all around belief systems that were created for you, but maybe not actually in service of you. So it's almost kind of like these belief systems were put onto you when you were a child, but do they really serve you any longer? And then how can you start to almost release those things? So it's such an interesting area of work. And it's a hard area of work because it almost requires you to go backwards, where you start to say
Yeah.
to yourself, okay, so I'm not owning my worth and my value today, but what are some of the things that I was taught back when I was a child or even throughout my life that actually are causing me to not own my worth and value today? And then how
Yeah.
do I flip those narratives or create new belief systems for myself? And
Yeah.
that's such a powerful area of work to do. And I don't think that we think about that enough when it comes to our careers.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to career, we can be very strategy driven. Like, what am I supposed to do? I hear that all the time. What's the next step? What am I supposed to do? And my response a lot of times is just sit with yourself.
Yeah.
Just sit with you. That's
Just
all you're supposed to do is just sit with yourself. Ask yourself a few questions, a few hard questions, and then sit with them.
Yeah, yeah. You know, one thing when you said that, I feel like it's part of it's feeling comfortable in your own skin, right? When you sit with
Mhm.
yourself, it's getting comfortable in your own skin there. So Michelle shared is fear that we think more of ourselves than others think we are.
Oh, that's so intriguing. I love,
Mhm.
that's interesting because um I think so highly of myself every single day. And it took years to get to that point. Like, it took forever to get there, where I've come to this point, Michelle, where I actually truly believe. I don't know if Diana's going to allow me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways because I know she loves me. I truly believe that I'm the shit, and I don't care what anybody else thinks. If they don't think it, that's totally fine. But it takes such a long time to get there, and it's a hard road to get to the point of like, no, I'm great, and you don't have to think that I'm great, but I know myself enough to know that I am that. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's an interesting one.
I love that. Like, this is all about how we see ourselves, right? If you don't
Mhm.
think you're great, how are we going to show up for others to see us being great, right? And so one of the affirmation I shared yesterday at my talk, and I want all of you to type it in, is I am MVP, meaning I am markable, I am valuable, I am proud,
Mhm.
right? And when I'm looking at it from the value standpoint of selling yourself, but it's like believing yourself that I am markable, that I am valuable, have something to offer, and that I'm proud of what I've accomplished. So I want to encourage you to type in I am MVP, and I want to encourage you to all to think about, what are you proud of? What are you proud of?
I love that. That is so awesome. Yeah, that's
Right?
awesome. I am MVP. I
I
can't.
am MVP.
Wait,
Type it in. I am MVP.
that's it. So I can type it in. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I
Yeah,
am MVP.
I am MVP, right? By the way, the chat engagement has been great right now. Like, there's been a lot of chats going on here. Anna just wrote as well, like, women hesitate to use powerful verbs in their resumes. Is the I just syndrome. Limiting beliefs hold us back from moving forward, especially if we're an immigrant.
Yeah, Anna, that's so true. And you know what I find as well? I love that Anna brought that up. Resumes, and one of the things that the number one thing, Diana, I wonder if you encounter this too. The number one thing that I have to coach women on in the interview process is stop saying we. Who the hell is we? Like, who is this we person that that did all of this amazing work that you're talking about? So it's yeah, we have a hard time claiming our accomplishments.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm with you as well. Like, it's really that balance, like I versus we. Like, you're the one going for an interview to qualify yourself for the job, not your team. I would
Mhm.
say it's not your team that's being qualified for the job, it's you being qualified. So we want to focus on talking about you versus the team there. I hear you. I love that. So let's move on. Our next question here is how to really demonstrate value to an employer.
Yeah.
And I think this goes back to whether in the workplace of either asking, getting a promotion, or trying to pitch yourself for a job. How do you really demonstrate your value to an employer?
Yeah. So in terms of the demonstration of value, again, like, so you're going to catch on to something real quick, all of y'all. I am all about starting with you. So you have to start with yourself. So you cannot demonstrate value unless you truly know what your value is. So we were talking about defining value in terms of what it is that I need from a company or from an environment. But here we're talking about value in terms of what are your unique assets, what are your unique skills, what are the things that you bring to the table. And you cannot talk about them to a company or demonstrate them if you truly do not know what they are first. So it's always going to start with you. So questions that I truly like to ask are, what are you actually great at doing? And it can almost come from like that feeling of, what do you get lost doing at work? So what do you just truly enjoy doing? And even asking other people, what am I really great at doing? And then once you kind of have that framework, kind of thinking about what are some of the examples, what are some of, like Dana was mentioning, the wins, what are some of the accomplishments that connect to that demonstrated value that you know you have. And then really just projecting that outward, thinking about every single day that you walk into that space, how can you own that value? How can you be using those skills deeper and more in a more engaging way? So how can you have conversations with your boss around, hey, I know this is something that I'm really great at doing. I would like to be doing this more. And so how can you make it that your work really is reflecting back what you know your unique value is? What do you think about that, Diana?
I love that. I think it does start with you, right? It does start with you first. And I'm going to take another angle to build on this is I look at from in a pitching yourself perspective of getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to understand how success is measured from
Yes.
a performance management standpoint. Like what's
Mm-hmm.
really important to them? Like what are they looking for? When
Yeah.
you understand that, then you can work backwards, reverse engineer and think about, okay, well, what value do I need to demonstrate to create, to showcase what success
Mm.
really looks like? So I think it's really understanding from their perspective of what success really means to them. And then from there, one thing I like to talk a lot about is once you understand that, is
Mm-hmm.
then you want to start promoting yourself, of talking about your accomplishments and results. Or you want to plant those seeds. If you're in the workplace, is it plant those seeds of things that you have created, that you delivered, or that you built, that you're proud of, so that you are planting the seeds that you are demonstrating value consistently and ongoingly as well.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that. Yeah, 100%. I think it's, what I heard you say was you need to know what they need and how they measure that success. And I think that is so key because with a lot of my clients, and I did this too very early on in my career, I grew up believing that hustle and working really hard was the key to success. But what that made me almost kind of do was put my head down and work, but it didn't necessarily make me think about what is it that I actually need to do that connects to what this company wants so that I'm actually doing the work that will showcase my value and therefore make me more valuable. I was just doing work. And I see that a lot with women too of, okay, I'm just going to get work done and then
Yeah.
they'll see that I'm valuable. I'm just going to get work done and then they'll just promote me. But that's not how it works. And I love how you talked about the success metrics and knowing what it is that they need and
Yeah.
connecting your value to that.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Like that's what you just said there is like this mindset thinking my work will speak for itself.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's not true. You may think it does, but it's just does only give a little bit of it. And I think this is where part of it is we have to talk about our accomplishments or getting others to talk about you. And I think this is where like building, advocating for yourself, where others can also advocate for you, is really important there.
Yeah. And I sometimes, I hear from my clients too, like I'm working really hard, but like other people are getting promoted. And the first thing I'll say to them is, what are those other people doing differently that you're not doing? And typically it is really thinking a bit more concisely and being a bit more strategic about the work that they're accepting to do and how they're promoting themselves. That's the core difference. And that can be really hard for women. And I find that can be hard especially for women of color. It's very challenging
Yeah.
when you're the only and you feel as though promoting yourself is almost going to receive backlash instead of actually further your career.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Michelle just shared here, this conversation is powerful, not just for searching for a post that is for you, but also how do we show up for our clients and small businesses? Absolutely. I feel like this ties for sure, whether you are a job seeker or you're a business owner, absolutely there. So let's talk about, one thing I wanted to share here. This is one of my formula that I've been talking about demonstrating your value. This is something I've been teaching a lot. I want to share this quickly is that
Oh, love it.
the formula to showcase your value is one is you at identifying your value, which is
Mm-hmm.
what Jasmine's been talking about here. I acknowledging your value, identifying your value, writing out things that you are proud of, like writing all that down. The second is believing in your value, which is really the mindset.
That's
You
totally.
have to believe it, even though you've written it, but do you actually really believe it? Because if you don't believe it,
Yeah,
you're
you're
not
done.
going to convince. You're not. You can't convince someone. You can't pitch someone. You can't.
Yeah.
People can feel that certainty. So you got to first believe it. Like what you said is like I am MVP, or like you got to believe that, right? And then the next piece is conveying your value, which is really the communication piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking up at work, right? Talking about your accomplishments. That's how you showcase your values, is by working through all these things is going to help you showcase that. And by doing this, guaranteed it's going to help you build your confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. That's absolutely wonderful. I think that, you're hitting upon something that I find is so important is the mindset piece, because I do feel as though, and this is something that I encounter a lot, we may know what we're good at, but we have a severe mindset blocker to even putting that out into the world. And so I think in our careers, when we think about careers, we think very strategically and we don't think as much about the mindset piece. So I love how your formula includes that as a component, because it's not just about knowing what you are great at. It is truly about believing you are an MVP, believing you are
Yeah.
just great at that thing. And once you know and once you believe, the convey will just naturally fall out of you. That's what I think. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. And maybe this is a mindset shift that I can offer. And because I talk a lot about this with my clients, is that instead of thinking that you are selling yourself, selling piece, which sometimes feels icky for people, think of how you're serving others.
Yeah.
Okay? Instead of thinking you have to sell yourself, think of how you're being of service through your gifts and your talents, your strengths, of how you are adding value, making an impact, making a difference, or how the employer is benefiting from your work. And when you look at it from that perspective, instead of thinking it's about me, it's really like how you're helping others.
I love that, because actually, and it's so funny that you say that, because I didn't figure that out until I became a business owner. When I became a business owner was when I started to realize that if I withheld my gift, I was actually doing a disservice to the people who wanted to work with me, or even just a disservice to the world, right? Because it's a ripple effect. You help one person, that person walks through this world differently, and then they will, in essence, change someone else. So I had to think of that from the business perspective as, if I withhold my gifts, I'm doing a disservice to the world. So yeah, that's so valuable. I love that mindset shift.
That's a great share. You just reminded me as well. Part of to help with us seeing our value more is actually going through some of the what's the word? Validating some of your track record of success. So I'll give you an example. Last year, I was actually talking to a business coach, and he asked me a question about how many clients have I helped. But more importantly, as he was digging further, he was asking me, okay, well, so it was not about just, it was asking about the jobs I helped them get. But then he asked me, it's like, how much more money did I help my clients make? That was a very powerful question, because I didn't really keep track of it until like the last several years, where I realized I was like, I've been helping my clients make millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And when I thought it from that perspective, it changed also the way of how I see about the value that I offer. And so what I'm trying to say here is part of it is we have to review it's not just looking at our accomplishments, but looking at like, wow, like what's really the impact that we're creating here that is valuable to others. And that will change the way we pitch ourselves there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, impact is something so important. And when you think about your brand, it really is about showcasing that impact too, especially if you're a job seeker, because we do talk a lot about having that impact in your resume, talking about it in interviews. So yeah, I love that. I love that addition.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about worthiness, how to own your worth, and really like how to ask for what you're worth.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, owning your worth again comes back to you defining what your worth and value is. So, we've talked a lot about that. So, you're at the point now where you're like, yes, I am an MVP. I'm the sugar honey iced tea. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to really claim this, right? So, I think in terms of owning your worth, we can sometimes think about that in terms of the monetary perspective. And I'm all for the money piece. Like everybody should be making their worth. And when you talk about worth in terms of money, we have to really be very considerate around what we should be making, not what someone else is willing to give us. And that's a completely different reframe. And I do have to say that that also is a mindset shift, right? Because we sort of think that companies set our value in terms of money, But I like to think of it from the perspective of you should be very considerate about setting your value and worth in terms of money. And that comes from really knowing what you should be making, doing the research, and doing it consistently, right? Always doing it. Even if you're in a current job, you should always be looking at salary information, but then connecting that back to your value and your accomplishments and achievements, so that when you make that claim of I should be making this, you have that information to back it up. But worth also can just be really understanding your worth and value in general in terms of what you're bringing to the company, and ensuring, like you said earlier, that you set that bar high so that you know that people are treating you the way you deserve to be treated. So there's a lot of different kind of components or ways that you can look at
You're
work.
right.
It all comes from how am I sort of setting the standard instead of waiting for someone else to set the standard for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Setting the standard instead of waiting for others. I want to build on this. I love, like you took this angle, the other angle, the worthiness of how we see ourselves. I totally agree that we have to do our research, do a due diligence. And because when we do that, it helps you be more informed, and that you can have better conversations as well. And one thing that I always talk about, especially when it comes to asking for a raise or asking for more, is that you want to be able to give proof that what you're delivering or the value that you bring to the table is worth more than what you're getting paid. So really thinking of this from an ROI standpoint, the return on investment, was when someone hires you, that they really see the value of what you're worth there.
Yeah.
I'll use a quick example. Like I recently hired a virtual assistant just last week. And this person that I hired, I'm actually really excited about. I call him my 3-in-1 VA, who can write, who can design, and who can edit videos. So this really, to me, the way I see it is that it's really worth it for me, because I can hire one person who can really demonstrate or help me with 3 aspects of different areas that I need help with. So to me, I'm willing to pay more for that, because the way I look at it is, well, I'm saving time. If I don't need to communicate to 3 different people, it saves me time. It saves me all this communication back and forth, or I can just communicate to one person. So it's worth for me that I would be willing to pay more for that. And so where I'm getting at is part of when we're looking at, when you're pitching yourself to an employer, is what's that skill set or the expertise that you're bringing to the table that can really either help them solve problems faster, be more productive, be more efficient, whatever that is, you want to be able to convey that there.
Yeah. First off, I love your VA.
I'm so excited.
It's a triple threat. That's amazing. And secondly, I totally agree with that. That's absolutely true. It's being able to showcase what you're fantastic at and what you're great at. Yeah, and owning that.
Yeah.
A side note, I may need to know who this amazing VA is. That's a total side note.
I'll look you up. Okay. Right. So I think that is important. It actually ties into this next question. I would say a part of this, owning your worth, is about how do you increase your value and worth.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like when I think back the example I just shared, to especially in today's marketplace that is very, very competitive, part of it is we need to be more, I would say, diversifying our skill sets, be more versatile.
Yes.
Right. We need to, be more adaptable, be able to embrace change. Like, change is always happening. There's a lot more new jobs being created now than ever before. So if we're not versatile or flexible in learning a new skill set, it's really hard to increase our marketability and our value to an employer there.
Yeah, I love that. And I 110% agree. And the way that I like to, okay, I'll say this again. If y'all didn't notice this, I'm very much about sitting with yourself, right? So I think, one of the things that I would say is people often ask, well, like, well, what do I know? How do I know where to increase my value and worth? How do I know where to kind of understand where those skills I need to develop? And again, it starts with you, right? I like to work with my clients on defining what career success means to them and setting a true career vision. Where do you see yourself going, right? What do you want success to be like for you in your career? What would you like it to look like? How much money would you like to be making? What kinds of positions do you want to have in the future? And then you can almost do what we've been talking about this entire time of assessing where
Yeah.
you are. So it's almost like set the goal, assess
Yeah.
where you are, and then determine where the gap is, right? So if I want to be here and making this amount of money and I'm here, how do I get there? And those are essentially what you were talking about, Diana, the skills, the things
Yeah.
that you want to work on. So it's about knowing where you want to go. And if you don't know where you want to go, you're kind of almost moving blindly. And again, I advocate for never moving blindly in your career because you should be the one owning your career. So if you're moving blindly, then what ends up happening is other people are directing where you're going. And in a few years, you're going to take a step back and be like, how the hell did I get here? So it's really important to kind of work on setting that vision and that where you want to go so that you then decide which opportunities are right for me, how can I claim my worth and value, and how can I move within this space. And the other thing too is, I love the word flexibility, but I also hate the word flexibility. Because when we think about it, we see job descriptions where it's like you need to be flexible, and that word can actually be very triggering because it's like, well, what in the hell does that mean? Truly, like, what does it mean when a company says I need you to be flexible? A lot of it means something very damaging and very toxic. Whereas what you're talking about is actually being flexible with your learning, flexible with your knowledge, and still keeping that in your space, right? Still being aware of what you need to do and what you need to know, and changing the flow and direction of that as it needs to go. I truly believe that, like, career success and our careers ebb and flow. They change just based on our lives and where we are. So that's where I think that flexibility comes in, is just knowing who you are, where you are, and what you need to change.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because what I'm hearing is that you don't want to be taken advantage of. Meaning, when we're not saying being flexible, and I have clients where they're like, I'm doing 2 or 3 people's jobs because they're such a high performer. And they got asked, well, because you're someone who's trustworthy, who's reliable, and we can depend on you, we're going to dump more work. And I think this goes back to then we need to set those boundaries. We got to set those standards of like, that essentially you got to pay me for it, more for it, if we need to take on a lot more bigger scope of work. I think that's what you're getting at from a flexibility, that we don't want to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, or like, I just don't want to do it. Like, you should be, it's perfectly okay for you to say, I don't want to do this. And money actually isn't going to be the thing that's going to make me change my mind. My peace of mind, my sanity, my work-life balance is actually the important component. And, it's interesting because, like, when I started out in my career, flexibility meant doing everything, right? Like, and I was okay with that because I was early in my career. I wanted the experience, I wanted the knowledge, I wanted to grow, and I wanted to grow fast. When I was later in my career, especially when I was growing my business, you couldn't pay me enough money to do anything. I wanted to do my job, I wanted to do it well, and then I wanted to go home and act in my service and in my gift. And I wanted to do that with energy. And so, hey, for you to decide, again, for you to decide what works for you.
Yeah, I love that.
That's important.
I love that. I want to ask the audience, going back to, like, as Jasmine's saying, like, what is your career vision, and what's one thing you can start doing in terms of helping you get closer there by increasing your value there? And Orlando comment here, I want to talk about this comment he has, is the market will pay your value through a high level of execution. I really like this because I hear this a lot actually from employers. It's also going back to be able to deliver, be able to really always deliver great quality of work, deliver results, right? And one thing I wanted to talk about, because sometimes I hear from people where either they want to get to the next level because they want to do more strategic work, they want to do more strategy work or big picture thinking work, which is great. But one thing I hear from also employers, that you also want to be able to demonstrate that you can also deliver, that you can execute, you can implement, you can really work with cross-functional teams to really get things done. That's really important because that is value.
Yeah. And I take that, I go back to what you mentioned before about understanding the metrics and understanding what success means first. Because, so this is putting it all out there, but like I had an incredibly toxic career, where I got taken advantage of a lot from companies, and I stake what I did there, right? I didn't always set the boundaries right. I had to learn those things. But so I do tell my clients, like, yes, you need to deliver, but deliver on the expectations that you have identified from the beginning. So set that standard first, because what can end up happening is if you let an employer constantly change the expectations or the standards, then they can start taking advantage of you. And so that's something that I think we have to be very cognizant of is when you start a position, when you're in a role, have those conversations. What does
Mhm.
success mean to this department? What does success mean to you? What are your expectations for me within the role? And make sure that that's clear between you and your employer, because there are a lot of companies out there who are looking for flexibility, who are looking for high degrees of standards of execution, and they will change that metric. And that's where we start to land into the spaces
Yeah.
where we're over delivering, and that's where the toxicity comes in. So yes,
Mm.
totally agree. We have to do the work. But a lot of times that's not the question. The question is
Mm.
not that we're not doing the work. The question is that the standards and expectations are consistently changing because of toxic work environments. And then we get burnout, and then we don't have work-life balance, and then we feel like we're not being paid our worth. So
Yeah.
it's important to deliver, but sometimes that's not the question, is whether we're delivering. Sometimes
Yeah.
the companies are setting unrealistic expectations. And so there's that component that we have to be cognizant of.
Yeah. And you know what I'm hearing here is, as an individual, we need to be brave and courageous enough to have these conversations.
Hell yes. And that's where I own my part in the role of my career, right? I own that. And I will tell people that all the time. In the beginning of my career, due to the way that I grew up or the way
Yeah.
that I learned, and you said this too, respect authority. I learned that you just accept things. You just take
Yeah.
it. You just take what's given to you. And that is what led me to not have those hard conversations with my employer. That is what led me to just doing the work and being in toxic workplaces. But once I flipped the script, because I learned, okay, I have to be the one to own this space and my boundaries, that's when things started to change. That's when they started to change the expectations that we agreed upon, I was like, absolutely not. You're either going to pay me more, or straight up, no, this isn't going to happen, or
Yeah.
I'm leaving. So, we have to have those conversations early on, and we have to continue to have those conversations. I find that the relationship that we have with our employers is just like any other relationship. You have to always be communicating, you always have to be talking, you always have to set those expectations.
Mm. Oh, this is so juicy. I just love it. I love that we can bounce off ideas like this because the truth is, right now, the work environment is constantly changing.
Mhm.
I keep hearing there are layoffs happening, restructuring happening, leaders moving around. Things are always changing. Expectations are always changing. So if you're part of that, you may feel like things are a bit nimble and don't know what's
Mhm.
happening. But you have to be willing to ask those conversations like, hey, what's the metric of success here? Like, how are things changing? What are you expecting me, and what do I need? Like, what do I need from you? You have to have those conversations. Otherwise you're just going to feel like you're not going to feel unhappy.
Yeah, yeah. You have to
Right.
have those conversations, and you have to be with an employer who wants to have them too.
Yeah. So we have a question from the audience. Nubia Sarah, is what would you suggest be the time frame between knowing your worth and seeing where your employer sees you, either getting promoted or staying stagnant?
It sounds like what she's asking is like, how do I know when it's time to go? That's what I'm reading from this. Is almost kind of like, all right, so I know I'm worthy. I know I'm the MVP. but it seems like they don't know that yet. So when do I know when it's time to go? And I think, what I would say is, Nubia, if I have you correct, please let me know. But if you're asking the question, then you know the answer. So again, it's within you. So if you're asking the question as, when do I know when it's time to go? Because I feel stagnant, I feel like I'm not getting promoted. If you have had these conversations, so that's the first thing. Have I had the conversations? Have I expressed clearly what I want? Have I tried to advocate for myself? And if the answer is yes, and I'm still not getting what I want, and that's why you feel stagnant, that's why you feel like, they're not seeing me, then you already know the answer because you're asking the question. Then it's time to go. It's time to consider your next step, because it sounds like your employer, even though you're advocating for yourself, you're showing your worth and value, isn't seeing it. And so you have to find a space that will.
That's a great point there. I think the other to keep in mind when it comes to promotions as well is we need to really understand part of it. To be honest, I feel like it's part of like the cycle and what is available to get promoted. Like, is there actually a need and demand for the next level role to create that? So I think it's understanding how the organization is structured as well. And I think there's a difference between just showcasing results of what you delivered versus also how are you improving in his overall, let's say, communication skills, leadership skills, all those soft skills in terms of improving your readiness for promotion as well. Like I feel like those are conversations we need to have with a manager there.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It goes back to what we were talking about, is you have to be the one who's having those conversations. So the first, when I have people come to me and say, well, my company won't promote me, my first question is, well, like, when did you talk to them about it? Like, when have you had that conversation? When did you discuss it? Because you're absolutely right. If you're having the conversation and your employer says, there's no line for that right now, but here are some of the things that we can work towards as it is created, that's a whole different scenario than I have tried to have these conversations and no one's listening to me.
Yes. So what you're getting at is that they're doing something to try to continue to retain you, to keep you, to grow you and develop you as well. Yes,
exactly.
That's a different conversation. Good.
100%.
Awesome.
I love that. Yes. And I love how we're talking about having the conversations. That's so important.
Yeah. So let's talk about, and feel free to bring in the questions. Like, these are the good questions coming in as well there. Yeah. How to identify your unique value. So we've been talking about demonstrating it, but it's like, how do you get clear on that or knowing that? Like, what's that process?
Well, it's interesting because I saw someone in here actually drop the name of a
Book.
Drop the name of a strength assessment. And that actually was something that I want to call back on. I don't know who dropped it, but it was called the
I saw. Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, yep. Sean. I love it, Sean. Yeah, so that's actually one of the great ways of trying to determine your value, right? Is how am I going to figure this out? Well, you can sit with yourself and you can reflect. You can ask yourself some great questions. What do I know that I'm great at doing, right? What do I do every day at work that actually I lose myself and that I enjoy doing? You can ask others, and you can also do these great assessments, like the high five test. I haven't taken that one, but I've heard it's really awesome. But there's also, strength finders. There's
I love that one.
I love strength finders. There's the Enneagram. So there's tons of these tests that you can take that at least give you a starting point where you can then say, okay, so here are some of the things they identified. Now, how do I actually utilize these things day to day in my existing career? So that's definitely one way to think about it. Diana, what would you add?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely love the strengths piece, right? Like the whole strengths test, strengths finder. I love that. One thing I get my clients to do is send out a perception survey. So you can just use like a Google form to ask them, similar to, I think, like a high five test, is asking questions like, what words would you use to describe me? What value do I bring? How to describe my communication style or leadership style? You ask these questions and you're going to find some themes, common themes and patterns. And it's always, I find, like very eye-opening for people. And it really helps validate either your value further or maybe potentially identify some gaps that you may need to improve on. So it all goes back to the self-awareness piece. One of the formula I like to use when it comes to identifying your value, like I love formulas. As you probably think that this is like the
formulas.
I think this is like the math tutor. I was a math tutor for 10 years, so I'm all about the formulas here.
That's awesome. I didn't know that about you.
I was a math tutor. Yeah, I tutored over 500 students from grade 1 to university level during my school days. That was part of like my part-time job that I had there. So I love formulas. So one thing I talk a lot about identifying your value is first, part 1 is to really put together your area of expertise. So this is putting the inventory of your knowledge, skills, and experience. And this can include your strengths as well, right? That's the first step. And the second step is really that track record of success. So this is where you really think of the proof. I always say that when you claim something, you want to showcase this proof, which is the achievements or promotions or results, awards, recognition, that track record of success here, right? And then the part 3 is step 3 is just thinking about the so what. What does this all mean? This is where you connect the dots to really looking at a combination of these things that will give you a competitive edge. Like this is something I love doing when I was a recruiter, even with my clients now, is like based on everything that you have and your track record of success, what is really valuable to the employer? Is it the fact that you've worked in a very niche area and have this unique expertise and you have relationships with like these vendors that's going to really help you move forward with a project? Or the fact that you speak multiple languages that's really going to help you do business in another country? You really want to pinpoint those things and you want to listen to the employer. Like what are something that's important to them so that you can really highlight this value consistently throughout your interviews there. So that's a formula I like to take people through because it's going to help you think very, very strategic and intentional in pitching yourself effectively.
I think that's amazing. It's such a great formula. I love your formulas. I'm gonna say like everybody on this LinkedIn live right now has to drop a like hashtag go Diana for her formulas. I absolutely love it. And you're right. It's about understanding and knowing and then really connecting to how you demonstrate it on a day-to-day basis, which goes back to our earlier conversation of just like owning your wins too, right? And when you own your wins, then you'll project them out more. So it all is like interconnected, y'all. Like
for sure. Everything's connected, right? Thanks for the confidence booster here, ladies. Yeah, I feel like, are you guys feeling more confident? Like type in the +1 here with this conversation. Let us know. It's giving you more confidence in owning your value and worth. We want to hear from you. Let us know if there's any other questions because we'll be wrapping up soon. And one question I have here, it ties into this of value and worth, is how to own your story with authenticity and confidence.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I love the hashtag go Diana. So, this is a really cool question. And I don't think that there is an easy answer for it because I do have to say that for the complete sake of transparency, we're both LinkedIn top voices. I didn't show up on LinkedIn for an incredibly long time because I was unsure of how the space was actually going to accept how much I wanted to be authentic and how much I wanted to put myself truly out there. Like I'm no holding back, 110%. And I think owning your story comes from truly not thinking about the external factors, right? Like I was so caught up with how everybody else was going to accept me that I actually stopped myself from telling my story. And so it actually it took me really recognizing, again, going back to, if I hold this in, it's just not going to be safe for me. It's going to be detrimental for me. But it also is going to be detrimental for everyone else. Like, what about all of the other women who have gone through the same journey that I have, who are walking around feeling so lost and like, is this just me? Is anybody else experiencing this? So owning your story almost kind of ties back to what we were talking about, owning your gifts. Like your story is a gift. Like your journey is a gift. And it isn't just you who's lived this gift. Like other people have also lived very similarly or have similar stories. And you have to tell it, like you have to put it out there because it's validating for you, but it's also so encouraging for everyone else. So it's important that we almost kind of, in a way, say, forget like everybody else and forget what negativity I might come my way. Like people need to hear this. Like I need to tell it. So
I
it's,
love it.
it's coming to that state and that point of what you were talking about before of like, this is your gift and you have to own it,
Ooh,
and you have to put it out into the world.
that gave me goosebumps, Jasmine, of
Uh,
seeing your story is a gift and being of service to others. I have to tell you, yesterday when I did the talk with the UN, I was encouraged to share my story. I usually don't go that deep in
mhm.
sharing my confidence struggles, which I shared earlier. And it was quite liberating as well, but also an opportunity to connect with others that they can really relate. That I
Mhm.
basically said I was not born speaking confidently on camera. I get comments all the time that Diana, you're so smooth on camera. You have this great presence, and I was never always like this. And I really try to tell people that I had to really work on believing in myself more, practice a lot more as well. Like I do a lot of practicing, and I'll
Mhm.
look at my videos again and look for opportunities to improve. And so I think part of it, of owning your story, is we need to get comfortable with our own skin. Like we got to get comfortable with who we are there.
Yeah.
I really didn't start sharing my story more on LinkedIn until last year in 2021. It's
Mhm.
2021. I've been sharing a lot of tips on how to
Mhm.
showcase like more the expertise piece. And I have to say, I think it's because having been in my business now for 10 years, that I own a lot more of what I have to offer as well. And it's got me more
Mhm.
comfortable in sharing my gift and sharing my voice. And for the longest time, I didn't feel comfortable telling people that I was once laid off because there was
Mhm.
so much shame
Mhm.
and embarrassment as well. Like for the first couple of years, I didn't talk about it. Only like my closest clients would know about it. And so I think part of it's a journey, the growth journey of how, as you grow and as you start doing more things that you are um, talented at, and that you are able to help people or help the employer to deliver great results, you are also building that self confidence of your own worth and value. And naturally, it's going to help you with speaking up with more confidence as well.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it is how comfortable you got to get to that feeling of comfort. It is not something that you can just throw yourself into, but I think it does come from, like you said, just knowing that it deserves to be shared.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to ask the audience, what is your biggest takeaway from today's conversation? Let us know, like, what's your biggest takeaway? What action will you take? We want to hear from you all of what your biggest takeaway is. Yeah. Jasmine, what's your, final advice or words of encouragement for our audience who's here today?
Well,
From you.
first off, I do want to say something to you, Diana. I got my nails painted blue and silver just for this. I went last night. I went last night and got my nails done blue and silver just for this because I knew that this conversation was going to be straight fire and I wanted to come ready. But my piece of advice, it's something that I say a lot and people like give me side eye. But you truly do own your career. You own every single aspect of your life. You always have a choice. And that's the beauty of being a human being, right? Like that's the beauty of being on this world and in this space is that we always have the opportunity to choose what we want our next step to be. So when it comes to your career, we can oftentimes relinquish the control to the
Yeah.
spaces and the places that we're in. But I really want you to step back and think about what's one thing that I can start to do to truly own my career and own who I am within it. and to think about, like, if I were the woman or the man or the person who were owning my career today, what would I do differently? Would I be in this space? Would I not be in this space? Would I accept this? Would I not accept this? Would I change my boundaries? Would I reframe my job? Would I do something differently? Like, allow yourself to explore what you would do, what you would change, what you would reflect on if you could just own your career.
Oh, that felt like a TEDx speech there, Jasmine.
Yeah, that's the next one.
Own your career. It's so powerful, right? This
Yeah.
all goes back to when we own our career, we own our value, we own our worth, owning our greatness. That's like my favorite saying, like owning our greatness, like really believing,
Yeah.
right? You're the bomb, right? You got to own that. When you start owning that, then you are really then being of service to others. You are making a greater impact.
Yeah, and it's not about being cocky, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know, I tell everybody, like, I'm amazing. I may not be for you, and that's totally fine. Like, that's great. Like, I may not be your flavor, but that's cool. I'm not your amazing, but that doesn't take away from me being amazing. And so that's important too. It's like, yeah, you are the bomb, and other people can have their decisions around how they want to see that, but that doesn't take away from you being the bomb.
You know what? I want to wrap it with what you're talking about here is don't let these criticisms or to really what's the word, minimize your own greatness,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
Yeah,
And oftentimes, yeah, and I think I saw your post something about this, how, right, like those criticisms, just like 1%, less than 1% of the people who may be criticizing you, but don't forget like the 99% of all the amazing things about you there. And
yeah,
oftentimes we may magnify that negativity or the criticisms because we're like, there's some flaw or something wrong about us, but we ought to keep in mind all these other amazing things about us as well.
100%. I love that.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, did you see all the comments coming in here, Jasmine?
I love it. I love Anna. I remember when Anna posted on the chief career officer, and I was like, oh my God, that is amazing.
You are your chief career officer. Don't wait for someone else to see your value. Yes.
It's so good. It's like, give yourself that title. I'm my chief career officer. That's amazing.
I love that. Oh my goodness. People are saying this is great, right? Sean said, think different, not at all. Only this after you pass the probation period. Stand in your power. Yes, yes. I want, because it's the weekend, I really want to encourage you all. Like, I hope this really inspire you and empower you to really own your value and worth. Like, do the exercise, like, Jasmine said, like, sit with yourself, do some soul searching, get clear on what's really important to you. What is it that you want to contribute more of? Like, what is it that where you're heading? And what can I do to get closer to where I want to be? Right? Do these kind of exercise, because I know this, like from my experience as a recruiter and coach, is that when you have clarity of who you are, what you want, what's important to you,
Yeah,
you're going to take more courageous action, and you're going to communicate in a more compelling and captivating way as well.
yeah.
I know that's like a big statement I made, but like when you get clear on what you want, you're going to be more confident and courageous moving forward, and you're going to communicate in a way that's a lot more impactful.
Yeah.
That's my other formula.
I love it. Your formulas are the bomb, girl. You are hitting it today with these formulas. They're great.
Owning your greatness. So thank you so much, all. We want to encourage you, if we're not connected yet, make sure to follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel as well that you can subscribe to the channel, where you'll find the recording of this. Feel free to share it with others. If you really like this, share it, comment it. We would love to hear your key learnings here. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Anything else you want to say, Jasmine?
No, thank you so much, Diana, to you for having me on the show. This is my second time doing it. I would love to do the third, because we have a blast together. I absolutely love it. And thank you so much to everyone who joined. And I loved seeing all of the comments here. It was such an active group, and you made it so fun to be here on this day. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.